Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. I couldn't resist making another couple cards using Simon Says Stamp's March 2020 card kit. So this time I am starting with watercolor paper again. This is Ranger's Distress watercolor paper. I have the smooth side of it facing up and I have it in my mini MISTI here. And this time I wanted to use a couple of the floral images from the Stronger Together stamp set. And I am inking up this image with Antique Linen Distress ink. Just a nice pale ink. This is a really good one for no line watercolor, which I have mentioned many times. I almost never do no line watercolor or just no line coloring in general. Because yeah, I don't have the patience. I really don't. It looks so gorgeous when I see other people do it. I'm always blown away and I usually just can't. However, images like this, I would recommend if you want to experiment with no line watercoloring or no line coloring. Images like this or one similar are definitely a great way to start to practice for beginners, etc., because they're much simpler. If you've never done any sort of no line coloring, definitely don't jump into a stamp set that has extreme detail and, a lot of realism, that sort of thing, because it can just get overwhelming. Whereas one like this, it's very simple petals, very simple shapes, simple leaves, and everything other than the actual petals of the flowers, everything's fairly separated, so it's pretty simple, because that's the big thing with no line is, well, with watercoloring anyway, no line watercoloring is you want to keep everything separate. So I'm doing the petals and I'm doing each other one, so that each little spot has a chance to dry before I do the next one, because you don't want things like bleeding into each other, because you want to keep that definition. So that's what I'm doing here is after I'd stamped it with the Antique Linen Distress ink, I'm using the watercolor pencils that come in the kit, and I'm just coloring basically every other petal, or the ones that they look kind of close together on camera, but in real life there was just a little bit of a space in between. And if I needed to, I would quickly dry things with my heat tool, just again to keep that bleeding from happening. So I did the first layer of the florals with kind of the pinky sort of watercolor pencil. And then I'm going in with the purple just to give it a little bit more depth, but also I thought the colors would look really nice together. And doing the exact same thing. So just doing every other one, applying a bit of the color with the watercolor pencil, and then just pulling it out and moving the color around with my little water brush. So I used just the two shades for the petals. And then for the leaves, I'm doing the same thing as I did in my previous video. I'm using a green, I'm going to add a little bit of yellow, and I'm going to add just the teeniest amount of the blue. Because I learned from doing the previous cards that the blue is a very strong color. It has a lot of pigment to it, so I'm just adding just the teeniest bit. Otherwise, it would just turn the leaves completely blue. So I did all three at the same time with the leaves because I already knew this was a little combo that would work well, and it just saved me time. So I colored that in and then did the exact same thing. Just pulled out the color with my water brush. And then I would kind of jump around a little bit just to make sure to let each, little leaf dry before going on to the next one. And then as a final little bit, this doesn't need to be a watercolor pencil. You could just use a color pencil if you wanted. But I'm going in, this is actually a brown watercolor pencil, and I'm very, very lightly just adding a little bit of shading along kind of the bottoms of the petals and, just slightly defining the lines between some of the petals as well as the stem. And then I'm going to add a bit to the leaves as well. It just gives it that little extra something. And I'm not going to add any water to this. I'm just going to leave it with the pencil coloring just to give it that little extra something. Although you totally could go in and just use a water brush to smooth that out if you wanted. But I kind of liked that little bit of texture it gave it. So I did take closer up pictures at the end that you guys can check out, and I'll have them posted on my blog as well. But this is also why I call this easy no line coloring, because if I can do this, anybody can do this. Like this is about as simple as it gets. In fact, I ended up doing a second piece the exact same way. I just used a different stamp from the set, used all the same colors, same order of everything, and it was fun. I'm not gonna lie, I actually enjoyed it. This set would also look really, really nice. Like do no line with Copics. I may have to try that. I really did enjoy this. It was fun. So after I was done all my coloring, I decided to die cut these with Simon's rounded rectangle wafer dies. And I die cut each one a different size, just because of just what was kind of going on in my head at the time. So the one that I die cut with the larger one, I'm actually going to heat emboss one of the sentiments from the Stronger Together set onto it. So of course everything's like completely dry at this point. So I used my anti-static powder tool, brushed off the excess, and then I've lined up the sentiment in my mini MISTI, and I'm stamping it with Simon's clear embossing ink. And then I'm going to heat emboss this with Ranger's liquid platinum embossing powder. Just to me, this is like a perfect neutral. You know, it's not gold, it's not silver, it's kind of that in-between sort of a color, and it just works. So coated the sentiment with that embossing powder and then melted it. For the other card front, I die cut the little bold hello wafer die that comes in the kit. I die cut it from some green cardstock in my stash, as well as the purple glitter paper that comes in the kit. So I die cut 3 layers from the green cardstock because I thought that would look kind of cute, peeking out from underneath the glitter paper, just to kind of tie in that shade of green that I used on the leaves. So I'm going to stack these all together with Simon's Craft Tacky glue that also comes in the kit. I was rather excited about that because I'm at the very tail end of the current bottle of Craft Tacky glue. So now I've got a fresh one ready to go. So I stacked all those together, and then I'm going to adhere those right to this little card panel here. And once I've got that adhered in place, I decided, because I had that glitter paper just sitting there and I really like it, it's really pretty. So I decided to cut that down to frame the card front, or the like rounded rectangle that has the heat embossed sentiment. So I pulled out my little Tim Holtz guillotine trimmer here, and I'm going to trim down this glitter paper so it's just slightly larger than this rectangle. And I'm just kind of eyeballing it. I'm not adhering anything yet because I'm going to be adhering things with foam tape and all that stuff. So I'm just kind of holding it in place and eyeballing it while I trim this down. And then after I did this, I decided I wanted to do the same thing for the other panel, but I wanted to use that same green cardstock that I pulled out for the die cutting. So I pulled that out, and I'm going to die cut that, or cut that down as well with my guillotine trimmer, doing the exact same thing. Just cutting it slightly larger than the rectangle and just eyeballing it as I go. So once I've got that trimmed down, off camera I also trimmed down a couple of the pattern papers that come in the kit. I trimmed down one slightly smaller than an A2 card front, and then the other one the actual size, the A2 card front, and then I'll show that in a few minutes when I actually get to like assembling these cards. But before I get to assembling the card fronts, I want to finish off the insides first. So I've pulled out my MISTI, I've flipped it around to the way I think it's meant to be. I mentioned this in the other video, and it kind of spurred on a little bit of a debate, which I found amusing. With the MISTIs, I don't think any way is the right way or the wrong way. I only mentioned it in my last video because the way I do it, like I use my MISTI more like a book. You know, I open it from right to left. It's just habit for me with the lid. But sometimes when I'm doing that, I end up creating more work for myself. And that's what I did in the last video. Like I was literally had to put my card bases upside down and sideways, and just, yeah, when I could have just turned the MISTI around and saved myself the hassle. But it's funny how you just are so used to doing things a certain way, you don't even think about that. So because of that, I was thinking about it when I made these cards. So I was like, save myself the effort and just turn the MISTI around. Oh, things got so much easier. So in the inside of both cards, I used a couple of the like block sentiments from that Stronger Together set, and I heat embossed them with that liquid platinum embossing powder. And then once I was done, I stamped some of the leaf images from the set with green apple ink. One I stamped above just the smaller sentiment, like just stamped right on top of it. And then that other sentiment, their little leaf cluster was like, it just fit. You know, I love when that happens. It just fit around that sentiment so perfectly. So I stamped on the top and bottom, and that finished off the insides of the cards. It's hard to see in the video and in the pictures, the actual sentiments. You can see them in the set and like what they say, but with the heat embossing and just the way it catches the light, it doesn't look like anything, but you can read it. It does work. So after I finished the insides, I had to adhere everything to the outsides. So I used a combination of the craft tacky glue. With this glitter one, I adhered the glitter paper with the craft tacky glue. And then I'm going to adhere the rectangle panel on top of that with Big MOMMA foam tape. I like to either use a good strong adhesive like the craft tacky glue or a foam tape to adhere on top of glitter paper, just because glitter paper is notorious for like repelling tape runners and just adhesive that isn't super strong. So once I had everything assembled, I got to add just a little bit of bling, you know, nothing too crazy. But yeah, I had these pulled out from the last video and didn't use them. These are the Radiant Orchid pearls from Studio Katia. I'd used the seafoam ones on the previous cards. And then these like kind of purpley colors were perfect with the color that the two pencils made for the petals. So I kind of sprinkled these throughout both these little card fronts and then adhered them into place with dabs of the craft tacky glue. And then once these are adhered into place, I'm going to pair these with the envelopes that came in the kit. So I have the shimmery purple envelope and then the mint envelope, and everything just kind of worked. It was just nice. So once I got these all paired up, both of these cards are done. So as always, I will have a link below the video to my blog post. I'll have the pictures of the cards, links to all the supplies, all that info will be directly below the video in the description box. It'll also be on my blog, which is also linked directly below the video. So you can check that out. And then in the upper right hand corner, I'll have links to like the unboxing video and my last video and all that stuff. I'll also have it at the very end here if you guys want to check any of that out. Thank you all so much for watching, for subscribing, for thumbs upping, for commenting, all of it. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.